The New England Patriots were supposed to be celebrating a Super Bowl run. Instead, the entire organization is now in crisis mode. What started as a few photos has spiraled into something the NFL reportedly could not ignore, forcing urgent damage control behind the scenes. At the center of it all, Mike Vrabel, a Coach of the Year winner, and a situation that has quickly gotten out of control. Inside the building, tensions are rising, questions are being asked, and the fallout is threatening to shake the franchise at its core. The league is watching closely. The Patriots are trying to contain it. And what really happened at that resort in Sedona might be even bigger than anyone expected. So let's break down exactly how this story exploded and why it's now being called one of the biggest scandals of the NFL offseason. On April 7, 2026, the New York Post page 6 published a story that sent shockwaves through the NFL world. Reports from the New York Post and page 6 included photos of Vrabel and Rossini recently holding hands and hugging at a luxurious hotel. The Patriots head coach and longtime NFL reporter were seen at the Ambiente in Sedona, Arizona. The images were taken on March 28th. New England Patriots head coach Mike Vrabel and New York Times NFL reporter Dianna Russini were photographed holding hands and embracing at a luxury resort in Sedona, Arizona. The photos emerged after the coach traveled to Arizona for a scouting event at Arizona State University in Tempe on Friday, March 27th, before heading roughly 125 miles north to Ambiente, an adults-only boutique hotel that markets itself as a romantic retreat. Rossini, a high-profile NFL insider for The Athletic, was also in Arizona ahead of the NFL's annual meetings at the Biltmore Hotel in Phoenix, where owners, coaches, and reporters gathered days later. Now, let's be clear about what these photos showed. The outlet published several photos of Rossini and Vrabel at the Sedona resort. In one picture, their fingers are interlocked. In another, they are hugging. Others showed them together at the hotel's pool. According to sources who spoke to page 6, Vrabel and Rossini had breakfast on the patio of the hotel restaurant, then spent a leisurely hour or so together at the pool and lounging side by side in a hot tub. Additionally, later that evening, the two were seen together on the private rooftop of one of the hotel's bungalows. This wasn't some random hotel either. The resort's rooftop decks are only accessible from inside the bungalows, which can cost up to $2,160 a night, boasting on its website of 158 proposals and thousands of anniversaries and honeymoons celebrated on the property. Mike Vrabel is 50 years old. Rossini has been married to her husband Kevin for 5 years, and Vrabel has been married to his wife Jen since 1999. That's a marriage of over 26 years. Jen Vrabel built her own athletic resume at Ohio State. Multiple reports say she played volleyball there and later earned a degree in dental hygiene. They met as student athletes. They raised 2 sons together. This wasn't just some tabloid gossip. It was a potential personal earthquake involving 2 very public figures. And the detail that really raised eyebrows was the eyewitness testimony. Page 6 reports that 3 separate eyewitnesses told the outlet they did not see anyone else with the duo during the day. One, asked if Vrabel had been part of a wider group of friends, replied, "No, he was with a girl." The outlet also notes that the photographs it reviewed from various stages of the day show only the coach and the reporter. This is significant because of what came next: the denials. When page 6 contacted Vrabel for comment before publishing, he responded with force. These photos show a completely innocent interaction, and any suggestion otherwise is laughable, Vrabel said to the Post. He added that the situation didn't deserve any further response. Rossini had her own defense ready. The photos don't represent the group of 6 people who were hanging out during the day. Rossini told page 6, like most journalists in the NFL, reporters interact with sources away from stadiums and other venues. And in a move that would later look questionable, the executive editor of The Athletic, Steven Ginsberg, said in a statement that the photos were misleading. These photos are misleading and lack essential context. But here's the thing. Those denials didn't hold up for long, not even close. What the public didn't see in those first hours and days after the story broke was the coordinated panic happening behind closed doors. This wasn't just 2 people caught off guard by a tabloid photographer. This was a multi-layered operation involving crisis communications experts, billionaire team owners, and top media executives, all scrambling to contain the damage before it spread. The photos were taken at a luxury resort away from the league meetings and appeared to show Rossini embracing and holding hands with the Patriots coach. Later that Sunday, Having learned the nature of the photos, she was on the phone with a crisis communications expert, strategizing how to respond to the story. But it didn't stop there. According to ESPN, in addition to consulting with a crisis communicator, Rossini appealed directly to the Times Company Chief Executive Officer Meredith Kopit-Levien to plead her case. She also coordinated with Vrabel about how to respond to the post. That last detail is worth sitting with. Rossini, the journalist, coordinated her response to a news story. With Vrabel, the subject she covers. That coordination in and of itself raised alarm bells about the nature of their relationship, professional or otherwise. And then there was the owner, Robert Kraft, the man who runs the Patriots, reportedly got directly involved. New reports reveal that the New York Post offered Vrabel a longer time to respond than what is considered industry norms, and in turn, the Patriots owner Robert Kraft took advantage of that extended time frame to put pressure on the reporter and the newspaper. However, his attempts in neutering the story were unsuccessful. Per an In Touch report, a notorious crisis strategist reached out to the Post and tried to get the outlet to nix the story, but was unsuccessful. Robert Kraft intervened and had his honchos pressure the Post before they published, and tried to kill the story. So now we've got the head coach, the reporter, a crisis communications firm, the CEO of the New York Times Company, and the Patriots owner. That's not the behavior of people dealing with a laughable interaction, as Vrabel put it. That's the behavior of people who understand how damaging those photos really are. And the Post wasn't unreasonable about it either. According to multiple people familiar with internal deliberations at the Post, the outlet was open to changing the tone of the story, or possibly not running it if Rossini and Vrabel could provide compelling evidence to back up their statements that they had each been on a trip with friends. They were given every chance to prove it. Produce a text message, show a photo from the supposed group hike, offer a screenshot of travel plans, anything to confirm that these other 4 people actually existed. The Athletic executives asked for more evidence from Rossini, such as text messages about an airport pickup, screenshots of planning the trip, or photos from a hike. They said Rossini never provided sufficient evidence. That failure to provide evidence is what turned a tabloid story into a full-blown professional crisis. Because inside The Athletic, the mood was shifting fast. Inside The Athletic, the Post report raised questions, because it included an eyewitness account of Rossini and Vrabel at the resort alone, which contradicted her version of events. Ginsburg's initial statement, combined with Rossini eventually being investigated, reportedly led some staffers at both the Times and Athletic to express concern over how the situation was being handled. One source told Status that Ginsburg's statement made things unnecessarily messy, with another calling it reckless and premature. The very editor who had publicly called the photos misleading was now overseeing an investigation into whether Rossini had lied to the company about the entire encounter. The internal fallout was seismic. By April 10th, just 3 days after the story was published, the situation had escalated dramatically. The Athletic had launched an investigation into Rossini's NFL coverage and the nature of her relationship with Vrabel, and she would not be reporting during that process. The Athletic's top editor, Steven Ginsburg, initially called the photos misleading, but the Times also opened an investigation into the matter, including a review of her past coverage, and benched her from reporting. 4 days later, on April 14th, Diana Rossini resigned. Rossini resigned from The Athletic amid an internal investigation into the nature of her relationship with Vrabel, her NFL coverage, and whether she had lied to the company about the meeting with Vrabel. In her resignation letter, she was defiant. Rather than allowing this to continue, I have decided to step aside now, before my current contract expires on June 30. I do so not because I accept the narrative that has been constructed around this episode, but because I refuse to lend it further oxygen or to let it define me or my career. She stood behind her body of work. I have covered the NFL with professionalism and dedication throughout my career, and I stand behind every story I have ever published. But what she did not do, and this has been noted repeatedly, is explain the nature of her relationship with Vrabel. Rossini notably did not address the nature of her relationship with Vrabel. She blamed the media frenzy for her departure, but offered zero new facts to counter the narrative she insisted was false. Her resignation letter did not state what the facts are, and her resignation didn't end the investigation. A review of her work will continue, even though she resigned. The broader conversation in sports media turned into something much deeper than one scandal. Journalists started talking openly about the lines between reporters and the people they cover. Veteran ESPN reporter Buster Olney highlighted the pervasive issue of quid pro quo relationships in the industry. I do hope this whole thing opens up a larger conversation about the potential destructiveness of quid pro quo in our business, because let me tell you something, it's as bad as I've ever seen. Sports Illustrated's Albert Briere acknowledged that female journalists often face disproportionate scrutiny. The lines get blurred in these sorts of situations sometimes, and it's hard, because I think a lot of times my female colleagues get questioned in ways that I do not get questioned. But Briere also didn't sugarcoat the implications. He warned that if ethical boundaries were indeed crossed, it could have damaging repercussions for all women in the industry, fostering unfair assumptions. The core question became, did Rossini provide favorable coverage to Vrabel? Because the two are close. If so, that could present a conflict of interest in Rossini's reporting. And the scandal didn't just claim Rossini. The scandal also claimed another scalp after USA Today cut ties with its NFL reporter, Chrissy Freud, after she publicly cheered the departure of Rossini. Freud was fired following a social media response to Rossini's departure from The Athletic. The ripple effects were spreading well beyond Foxborough and Sedona. While Rossini lost her job and the media world exploded, Mike Vrabel went silent. For 2 full weeks, the reigning coach of the year said nothing publicly. Until his appearance Tuesday, Vrabel hadn't spoken in a news conference setting with reporters. Since the owners' meetings last year prior to his first season as Patriots coach, he addressed reporters as part of the lead-up to the NFL draft. He opted not to do that last week, with only Patriots Vice President of Player Personnel, Elliot Wolf, speaking at that news conference on April 13th. The Patriots organization went into full containment mode. The strategy was methodical, and according to the Boston Globe, the work of crisis communications professionals, the Patriots finally got Vrabel in front of the media and avoided the circus. It was smartly designed and flawlessly executed. The work, perhaps, of crisis communications experts who have emerged as the big winner of this ordeal. On Tuesday, April 21st, the Patriots pulled off what many in Boston media described as a sneak attack. Vrabel wasn't on Tuesday's media schedule released by the Patriots at 4:35 p.m. Monday, and there was no announcement Tuesday morning that Vrabel would be breaking his silence. It was supposed to be a sleepy press conference with 2 veteran players talking about the start of the Patriots' offseason program. There was a bare-bones media crowd by New England standards, with several regulars not in attendance. Those on hand were notified maybe 5 minutes ahead of time that Vrabel would be speaking instead of players. The timing was intentional. The Patriots didn't want the media frenzy overtaking Thursday night's draft. The TV stations would have sent their hard news reporters. The media crowd would have been double the normal size. The first-round pick would have been an afterthought. Social media and ESPN the next morning would be dominated by all the awkward questions Vrabel had to face. Instead, they purposely chose a time and method that would minimize the number of reporters asking him questions. When Vrabel did speak, he delivered what was clearly a prepared statement. He thanked the media for the patience that you've shown in a personal and private matter, and said he was waiting to address the matter until he was able to speak with the Patriots players. In order to be successful on and off the field, you have to make good decisions. That includes me. That starts with me, Vrabel said, making an unscheduled statement from the podium at the team's facility. I care deeply about this football team, and I'm excited to coach them. I also know that I'm gonna attack each day with humility and focus. And what I can promise you is that my family, this organization, the team, the staff, the coaches, everybody, our fans, most importantly, will get the best version of me going forward. Notice what he didn't say. He didn't explain the photos. He didn't explain the relationship. He didn't address the eyewitness accounts. He didn't mention Rossini by name. He didn't take meaningful questions. Vrabel hit a lot of the right notes in his statement. He declined comment on a few questions, but the last 2 weeks have clearly been humbling for a man who had been riding high, with a Super Bowl appearance and NFL Coach of the Year award. And the gap between his initial reaction and his Tuesday statement was impossible to ignore. It doesn't seem that Vrabel finds the situation laughable anymore, as he said in his original statement to Page 6. The Boston Globe's Ben Volin was blunt about the way the team handled it. The way Tuesday's press conference went down, with a last-minute sneak attack on the media and strict ground rules established by the Patriots, doesn't sit right, though, appearing transparent. the Patriots did their best to dictate the terms of Vrabel's appearance. It cuts against Vrabel's message of accountability. Behind the scenes, though, the Patriots insisted it was business as usual. When asked how much Vrabel had been involved with the team's draft process, Wolf said, "Very involved. Business as usual. I'd say he's been in there with us this round probably a little more than he was in there last year." A Patriots spokesman said there are no plans for other team officials to address the issue further. So with Rossini gone, the Patriots in lockdown mode, and Vrabel finally breaking his silence, the big question remained: would the NFL itself step in? The answer came on April 18th. NFL chief spokesperson Brian McCarthy told ESPN that the organization's personal conduct policy requires coaches to avoid conduct detrimental to the integrity of and public confidence in the National Football League, and that the NFL would not be reviewing Vrabel's behavior accordingly. The NFL said last weekend that it is not investigating Vrabel's behavior. NFL spokesman Brian McCarthy confirmed to the Associated Press on Saturday that the league is not looking into the matter. As for Vrabel, it doesn't appear that he will receive any sort of penalty or punishment from the NFL regarding his behavior with Rossini. And this is where the entire story becomes difficult to square. Here is a man who, by every visible metric, is carrying on with his job as if nothing happened. Vrabel, 50, won 3 Super Bowls as a player with New England. He is preparing for his second season as coach of the Patriots. He led the team to a 14-3 finish last season, which ended with a Super Bowl loss to Seattle. He took the Patriots from the bottom of the league to the Super Bowl in a single season. He won Coach of the Year. He is one of the most powerful men in the sport, and the NFL has decided that what happened in Sedona doesn't warrant even a review. Meanwhile, Rossini, a 15-year veteran journalist who worked at ESPN, NBC, and The Athletic, lost her entire career over the same set of photographs. Rossini joined The Athletic in 2023 after nearly a decade at ESPN, where she held various roles, including SportsCenter anchor, NFL analyst, and insider. She hosted a podcast for The Athletic and made appearances on their video platform. Jameel Hill, for one, questioned why women in similar situations often face sharper consequences than men. That argument gave the story life well beyond the original photographs. And look, here's the truth that sits at the center of all of this. The title of this video suggests the NFL forced the Patriots to shut down over Vrabel's scandal. The reality is more complicated and in some ways more frustrating. The NFL didn't force the Patriots to do anything. The NFL said it is not investigating Vrabel's behavior. NFL spokesman Brian McCarthy confirmed the league is not looking into the matter. The Patriots weren't shut down. They were embarrassed into damage control. They voluntarily went into containment mode, limiting media access, staging press conferences, and hiring crisis teams, not because the league ordered them to, but because the story was spiraling beyond anyone's ability to manage it. The Patriots had the opportunity to stop the scandal from getting out, but they failed. It now appears that the Patriots were aware of the scandal and attempted to shut it down. What really forced the Patriots into crisis mode wasn't the NFL. It was the sheer weight of the evidence, the inability of Vrabel and Rossini to back up their story, the eyewitness accounts, the failure to produce proof of other friends, the resignation, the internal investigation, the editor's premature defense, and the internet refusing to let it go. The story itself became unmanageable, and the Patriots' attempts to control it only made it look worse. So did the NFL force the Patriots to shut down? No. But did the scandal effectively shut down the Patriots' offseason narrative, hijack their draft week, cost a reporter her career, expose potential cover-up attempts by the team's owner, and leave the reigning Coach of the Year issuing carefully rehearsed apologies to a half-empty press room? Absolutely. And sometimes the court of public opinion does more damage than any league investigation ever could. The 2026 NFL Draft starts Thursday night. Vrabel himself said he didn't want to take away from the weekend of the draft, noting that players selected to join the team should feel joy and excitement, not be wrapped up in a scandal. But whether Vrabel likes it or not, this scandal has already overshadowed everything the Patriots are doing this offseason. And the question that remains unanswered, what really happened at the Ambiente Resort in Sedona, may never get a definitive answer. But the consequences have already been handed out, and they tell their own story about who pays the price. When things like this come to light,